At the New Orleans Convention Center, Adam Schiff stepped onto the stage with a self-assured air, as though the debate was already in his favor. What he didn't expect, however, was John Kennedy quietly unraveling hidden truths one by one until Schiff could no longer maintain his composure. The atmosphere in the room was tight, not the buzz of a concert or sports match, but a heavy, deliberate anticipation. Soft murmurs drifted through the crowd. Cameramen adjusted their lenses for a final check, and political aides braced for a moment that might alter the political landscape. Backstage, Senator John Kennedy sat alone in a cold waiting room. His suit showed slight wrinkles, reading glasses low on his nose, yet his posture remained calm and collected. In his lap was a slim stack of worn files, light in number but weighty in content. He glanced up at the television mounted on the wall. A live countdown ticked away. 7 minutes to go. Down the hall, Adam Schiff entered with his typical flair. Boisterous. Laughter, handshakes with strangers, and a joke about the intense stage lighting in Louisiana. His staff followed behind, some trying to appear busy, others simply trying not to be noticed. In Kennedy's room, the mood was quieter. His campaign manager, Michael, peeked in. "Ready, Senator?" Kennedy looked up and replied, "I've been ready." Michael stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "Are you sure you want to bring this up tonight?" Kennedy didn't answer right away. He traced the edge of the files with his finger. "People forget what he's done," he said softly. "But the ones he hurt, they don't. They carry it." Michael exhaled. "We've got 2 hours. Don't let him turn this into a show." Kennedy smiled faintly. "If he wants a show, let him. I've got the congressional record." In the main hall, every seat was filled. Right on schedule, the moderator took the stage. "Good evening, Louisiana. Welcome to tonight's nationally televised debate. Joining us are Senator Adam Schiff and Senator John Kennedy." Applause broke out quickly for both men. Schiff strode out, waving with both thumbs up. Kennedy followed with measured calm, offering a slight nod to the crowd. He placed his file stack gently on the podium, as though handling something delicate. He didn't even glance at it. The moderator explained the rules. 2 hours, alternating answers, no interruptions. Schiff raised an eyebrow and smirked at the audience. They chuckled. Kennedy didn't react. His eyes moved slowly across the room, his face unreadable. "Senator Kennedy," the moderator began, "what do you consider the greatest failure in American politics today?" Kennedy replied without emotion, "Failures rarely begin with the people. They start at the top with decisions made behind closed doors, deals made for the benefit of a few, while the rest are left to deal with the fallout." He didn't need to raise his voice. His words hung in the air, lingering. Schiff quickly jumped in. "Please, the biggest failure is letting people like him pretend they understand how to govern. I've defended democracy. I've worked for millions. What's he done? Just talked." Some audience members laughed. Others looked down at their phones. Kennedy stood still, unfazed. Then he leaned into the mic. "You say you defend democracy, but sometimes, in the name of protecting it, you've ended up hurting it too." The moderator quickly moved to the next question, but the tone in the room had shifted. From the start, Schiff played to his strength, commanding the crowd with confident gestures. He leaned in, interrupted often, chuckled at his own remarks, and framed his responses dramatically. "We used to have the strongest democracy. Then it was weakened. You all know it. You lived through it," he said, pointing at the crowd like a coach giving a pep talk. "You don't need someone who reads papers. You need someone with guts." The crowd roared, just the reaction Schiff's team hoped for. Kennedy stood composed, hands folded at his podium. When it was his turn, he kept to the facts. He talked about stagnant wages, unreliable elections, and how rural and minority communities were suffering. Schiff wasn't done. "Look at him," he mocked, "reading from that little stack. How adorable. You don't lead with paper, you lead with courage." This time the crowd's reaction was mixed. Some laughed, others whispered. The mood had shifted, just enough for Kennedy's next words to land. "Courage helps," Kennedy said evenly. "But without reason, you'll steer the nation straight off a cliff." Silence, then sudden applause. The moderator stepped in, moving the discussion toward leadership and accountability. Schiff seized the moment to rail against what he called political witch hunts and false charges. He listed grievances, FBI investigations, social media restrictions, lawsuits he claimed were baseless. Then casually he said something that made Kennedy glance up, not dramatically, but enough for cameras to catch. "I've settled a few things, sure," Schiff said, "not because I was wrong, but because it was easier. You write a check and move on. Happens all the time." That single sentence lit something in Kennedy. He gently lifted his hand to the file stack, not opening it, just resting his fingers on it. "Senator Kennedy," the moderator asked, "do you believe ethical compromise matters for a public official?" Kennedy didn't rush. He looked at the moderator, then the audience, then into the camera. "Most people don't get to settle things quietly," he said. "If your rent goes up, there's no legal team. You take the hit. If your boss cuts hours, there's no press release. You just deal with it. So when someone like him treats compromise like a receipt, yes, it matters. No shouting, no theatrics, just honest conviction." Schiff tried to jump in, but the moderator stopped him. "You'll have your chance, Senator." Schiff's expression tightened, a flash of annoyance noticeable to those watching closely. And the crowd noticed. Schiff's jabs began to falter. He mocked systemic inequality and accused the moderator of being biased. Some in the audience glared. He called Kennedy a bitter man chasing attention. That's when a man in a blue jacket stood up and walked out. Calmly, not angry, just finished. His seat remained empty. Kennedy saw it, but stayed silent. The momentum was changing, not because Kennedy was loud or aggressive, but because he was steady and thoughtful. He waited patiently. Then the moment came. The moderator asked about trust in leadership. Kennedy leaned in. "My dad ran a small grocery store in Baton Rouge. He didn't use big words, but when he sold you something, you knew it had value. That's trust." The room went silent. Even Schiff's team paused. Kennedy's voice softened. "He worked until his body gave out. I remember that every time I speak, every time I vote. When I see someone struggling while others hold power they never earned, I think of him." Then he turned to Schiff. "Some of us can't just write a check and forget." Schiff shifted, arms crossed. For the first time, he looked away. Kennedy leaned closer. "I remember a man named David. He worked on a California project you supported, lost his job due to regulations you pushed. Asked for help. None came. When he sued, you dragged it out until he ran out of money. Took a settlement, just to stay silent. I'm not David. I can speak." Schiff's expression faltered. Kennedy opened his file and removed a single worn document. "I've seen dozens of cases like David's," he said. "People buried in settlements and legal threats. Each one shows how power isn't used to lead, but to silence." He named names. Mary from New Orleans, fired while sick. Thomas from Baton Rouge, underpaid for public work. Sarah from Shreveport, retaliated against for reporting safety issues, silenced with a clause that nearly ruined her career. He looked at the moderator. "You asked about leadership in crisis? Here's the truth. Who someone is when no one's watching is who they'll be when it matters." Schiff gave a forced laugh. Everyone's had disputes. You think he's never silenced someone? He asked the audience. Come on, that's politics. Kennedy didn't respond directly. He looked at the crowd. There's a difference between asking someone to stay quiet and crushing them for speaking. The room had changed again, not loud but deep, a woman in a red sweater who hadn't clapped. All Night now nodded slowly, eyes fixed on Kennedy. Schiff, for the first time, looked uncertain. The moderator tried to bring control. Senator Kennedy, are you saying these cases influence Senator Schiff's decisions? Without pause, Kennedy answered, When silence becomes a habit, it changes how you see people. If you see workers as disposable, don't be surprised when you treat them that way as a leader. You don't understand the entire context behind those decisions. You're selecting a few documents and painting me as the villain, but thousands have benefited from what I've done, Kennedy said, keeping his tone composed. I'm not trying to portray you as the villain, came the calm reply. I'm just making sure the victims aren't invisible. For a moment the room stood still. No clapping, no shouts, just a heavy silence. A young man near the back quietly rose, leaned toward the person next to him to whisper something, then exited the room without a sound, neither angry nor emotional, just gone. The moderator glanced down at their notes, clearly uncertain how to continue. Senator Schiff, would you like to respond before we transition to the next topic? Schiff waved his hand. Go on. He wants to rehash old disputes. I'm focused on the future. No one cares about congressional drama from years ago. Kennedy arched an eyebrow. Tell that to Henry's son. He didn't have to say more. What followed would make indifference impossible for Schiff. The stack of files on Kennedy's podium had noticeably decreased, yet each paper he presented felt like a weight added to the room. He didn't shout, didn't dramatize, but the atmosphere thickened, as if every person was leaning forward without realizing it. Even the normally assertive moderator stayed silent. Kennedy rested both hands on the podium and scanned the audience. How many of you have signed something without reading or fully understanding it? Dozens of hands rose, not in defiance, but with a quiet honesty rooted in experience. He nodded. Most people don't have lawyers reviewing every document. They don't have advisors, no PR team, no safety net. And when things fall apart, they don't walk away unharmed. They crash, and they stay down. Adam Schiff gave a louder scoff this time. Oh, come on. He's trying to turn a debate into a soap opera. We're talking about leadership here, not sad stories. But the room didn't laugh with him. Kennedy reached for another set of documents, thick packets of printed emails, reports, and memos. He lifted them slowly. This is from a project in Shreveport, Louisiana, tied to a policy you endorsed. It was a community relocation program that over 80 families signed up for. Many even sold their homes preparing for the move. He flipped through several pages. Then the funding disappeared, the partner organization pulled out, and you vanished. The land remains vacant. Many families never received their deposits. Some couldn't afford to file lawsuits. One man died still fighting to get his money back. His daughter is here tonight. A collective gasp swept through the audience. Schiff stared across the stage, and his words slowed. That project wasn't under my direct management, he said. That was a local issue. If there was any mishandling of funds, that's not my responsibility. Kennedy turned slightly. You campaigned for that project. Spoke about it on television. Your name was plastered on the billboards, but when it collapsed, you disappeared. That's the pattern. Take the credit when it's promised, disappear when it fails. Schiff remained silent. Kennedy picked up another paper. This, he said, is a transcript from a 2019 Sacramento hearing. You were under oath. When Asked if you were aware of complaints related to a policy you pushed, you responded, and I quote, "That's not my problem. That's for local agencies." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Leadership isn't blaming others when it's convenient. It's standing up when it's hard. A light clap came from the second row. Once, twice, then silence again, unsure if applause was appropriate. But the shift in energy had begun. Schiff tried to steady himself. Every leader lets someone down at some point. That's part of public service. It's just reality. Kennedy leaned into the mic. "No, that's the cost of the way you lead." He pulled out one final document, an email printed in black and white, the corner slightly bent. "This is from Nathan, a former staffer on your intelligence committee team." In this email, he warned that the committee was overstating the Trump-Russia evidence for political purposes. Nathan was fired not long after. He placed the email down with care. Nathan died later from kidney failure. He couldn't afford proper treatment. His widow now works as a hotel receptionist, just 3 blocks from here. Schiff shifted uncomfortably. His skin didn't flush. It paled. The moderator tried to step in. "We may need to take a short break." But Kennedy cut in firmly. "No, people like Nathan don't get breaks. They work until there's nothing left. They believe until they're betrayed. And this man wants your vote. He wants you to forget everything I just told you. But I don't forget. And I won't let you forget either." The moderator nodded, clearly rattled. "We'll move to final statements." Schiff leaned back, adjusted his suit, and forced a smile. But it didn't land. On Kennedy's podium, the once towering stack of files now lay nearly flat. It had done its job, yet the pressure in the room was only intensifying. Schiff placed both hands on his podium. His fingers tapped restlessly, speeding up and slowing down, as if searching for a rhythm that might ground him. Kennedy hadn't even touched his mic again. The moderator looked to Schiff. "Senator, would you like to respond?" Schiff inhaled deeply, then began. "I've served this country more than most people even dream of. Sure, some folks feel left behind. That happens. That's the price of achievement. Things don't always go perfectly. But I've defended democracy. I've made the tough calls. I've made an impact bigger than almost anyone in this arena." His voice caught slightly on the last sentence. He reached for his water bottle. Across from him, Kennedy remained still, calm. His papers lay untouched. He didn't need anything else. The silence had become his ally. Schiff continued, more agitated. "What you heard tonight, that's just a curated series of stories. You think I'm the only politician who's ever been sued? The only one who's had to make hard decisions? I've delivered results. I've brought opportunities to forgotten places. That's what matters." He hesitated too long. "And this effort to paint me as the villain? It's theater. That's all it is. He's trying to make a name for himself by standing on my reputation." He turned to the audience. "You see through that, right?" But the audience didn't respond. Some stared. Others looked away. A man rubbed his hands and whispered to a woman beside him. She didn't answer. The moderator jumped in, trying to stabilize things. "We'll begin closing remarks. Senator Kennedy?" But Schiff cut in again, quicker, less composed. "I've been under attack my whole life. Fake news, biased courts, politicians like him who don't build anything, just throw slogans. They're scared of me. That's why they come after me. I don't play their game. I don't kneel to them." He gripped the edge of the podium. His voice quivered, not with confidence, but something else. Then he wavered, stepping slightly back, as though losing balance. His hand missed the center of the podium, his body tilting off. The moderator froze, Kennedy didn't react, but his eyes darted toward Schiff's aide off stage. Schiff gasped for breath and stumbled sideways. A faint murmur rose from the second row. Cameras kept rolling as an aide in a blue suit rushed on stage, whispering frantically. Schiff waved him off, hands shaking. The message was unmistakable. He was no longer in control. Not of the debate, not of the room, and not of himself. The moderator's tone dropped. "Senator, would you like to step backstage?" Schiff blinked. Sweat gathered on his brow. His face was pale. He adjusted his jacket as if that might help, then stepped back too fast, catching himself on the podium railing. The room remained completely silent. Cameras still captured every second. Another aide, this one with a headset, rushed forward. They gently guided Schiff toward the curtain. His steps were uneven, his breathing loud. At the edge, he turned, not to the crowd, not to the moderator, but directly to Kennedy. Kennedy didn't flinch. Schiff locked eyes with him, clearly, wanting to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Then he disappeared behind the curtain. The audience murmured softly, unsure of what to do next. The moderator attempted to reset the atmosphere. "We'll pause briefly while Senator Schiff receives medical attention. Thank you for your patience." The broadcast stayed live. Kennedy quietly reached forward, closing the remaining files. No dramatics, no gestures, just the quiet conclusion of a long trail of truths. He looked up at the audience, then to the moderator. "I'm ready to finish my statement," he said, but the country was already reacting, and this moment was far from over. Kennedy remained at his podium as backstage staff moved swiftly. No music, no announcements, only the silence of something unforgettable. A staffer stepped onto the stage, whispered into the moderator's earpiece. The moderator nodded solemnly and addressed the room. "We've received word that Senator Schiff is being treated by medical staff." A quiet murmur spread through the room like a faint current of static. No one moved at first. The audience seemed unsure. Was the debate truly finished or merely on pause? John Kennedy didn't leave. He drew a breath and spoke up. "I didn't come here to trip anyone up. I came because too many have already fallen." The camera stayed fixed on him. "I didn't spend weeks compiling this file to create a spectacle. I did it because someone needs to speak truth in a place where it won't be edited or buried in legal language." His words struck a chord. They didn't sound rehearsed. They felt like someone speaking from deep conviction, overriding caution. Then he turned and stepped away from the podium, calmly walking toward his team waiting backstage. As he vanished behind the curtain, his microphone caught one last comment to Michael, his campaign manager. That was the moment. Not the stumble, not the fall, not the exit from the stage. That. By the time Kennedy reached the dressing room, the footage had already gone viral, shared across dozens of X accounts and reaction videos on YouTube. Some labeled it the Kennedy moment. Others called it the collapse. But the heart of it was unchanged. Clips of Kennedy recounting stories played nonstop, especially the one about the veteran and the daughter who never got her refund. TikTok exploded with edits, some theatrical, others mocking, a few sincerely respectful. Even those who didn't. Watch the debate saw screenshots, quotes, and 15-second clips of Schiff being escorted away while Kennedy stood silently behind him. Late-night shows pivoted quickly. One host joked, "When they say the truth will set you free, they don't usually mean off the stage." But on most networks, the mood was more somber than humorous. On Fox News, a former senator remarked, "This wasn't just a political moment. It was a reckoning." MSNBC's late-night panel was divided. One called it a strategic takedown. Another said, "He didn't attack, he revealed." CNN focused on Schiff's condition. Some speculated exhaustion, others cited heat stroke. But even among longtime supporters, the online reaction was impossible to ignore. Posts like, "I supported him, but I can't excuse tonight. Why didn't he answer the veterans question?" Kennedy hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't mocked anyone. He had simply spoken, and people had listened. Even political commentators known for roasting conservatives admitted he didn't come off angry or preachy, just well prepared. By midnight, Kennedy's phone had 92 missed calls. His inbox crashed from the volume. Messages came pouring in, staffers, childhood friends, a pastor from Baton Rouge, and a woman in Fresno who wrote, "Thank you for saying Henry's name. My brother worked with him." Kennedy sat on a bench outside the venue, staring at the ground. Michael handed him a jacket. "Interview requests are already piling up. Fox, NBC, even PBS. Kennedy didn't respond. "They'll turn it into a show," Michael warned. "Focus on the fall, not the message." Kennedy gave a slow nod. "Then we keep the focus on the people, the ones nobody lets speak." Michael smiled slightly. "I don't think you have to worry about that anymore." Kennedy looked at him. "Why?" Michael turned his phone around, revealing a message from a prominent newspaper editor. "You didn't just show up. You shifted the entire conversation." But Kennedy wasn't focused on that. His thoughts were elsewhere, on a promise he hadn't forgotten. The ride back to the hotel in New Orleans was quiet. Kennedy sat in the back of a basic black SUV, nothing fancy, just reliable, the kind used by campaign teams on a budget. The Louisiana night drifted by. Gas stations, shuttered pawn shops, convenience stores. Unremarkable, yet heavy in their stillness. His phone kept buzzing. Michael had silenced the notifications an hour earlier, but the screen still lit up every few seconds with requests, support messages, even a few threats. Kennedy stared ahead, silent. "Want to debrief now or in the morning?" Michael asked from the front seat. "No debrief," Kennedy replied. "I just need to think." The driver pulled into a modest hotel on Canal Street, older than its pictures but clean. Kennedy had stayed there once during his time as Louisiana's treasurer, fighting over budget issues. The lobby was nearly empty. A young woman at the front desk glanced up, startled, unsure if she should say something. Kennedy returned a faint smile and followed Michael to the elevator. Inside his room, Kennedy shrugged off his jacket, draped it over a chair, kicked off his shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. He exhaled, not in relief, but like someone finally settling after the chaos. Michael came in holding a tablet filled with interview requests from ABC, the Times-Picayune, and a local paper in Shreveport. "They want to talk first thing tomorrow," Michael said. "I told them we'd get back to them." Kennedy nodded absently. He looked at his hands, now steady. Earlier, right after Schiff collapsed, they had trembled, not from nerves, but something deeper. "You all right?" Michael asked. Kennedy looked up, eyes weary but dry. "Remember the story I told you about my cousin?" Michael thought for a second. "The one who lost his store?" "No, the other one." Kennedy reached into his wallet and pulled out a worn photo. The edges were frayed, the image faded. A man and a young girl standing outside a grocery store, untouched by hardship. "That's Jimmy," Kennedy said. "He had a shop in Monroe, got crushed by regulation when a policy shift cut his support. This was before he became known, before the committees." Kennedy flipped the photo over, written faintly on the back, "Jimmy and Lily, summer before the store closed." They cut funding, called the project non-viable. Jimmy called Schiff's office, sent letters, no reply. By the time he got a lawyer, the project had a new name and no paper trail. He lost the store, then the house, started drinking. His wife left. Michael listened, quiet. "That little girl, Lily, she's Mary now, single mom in Lafayette, still scraping by, never had a shot. Jimmy died in a rented apartment above a hardware store. Nobody came to his funeral but me and the guy who fixed his car. Kennedy folded the photo and put it back. This isn't about politics. It's not about parties or headlines. It's about people like Jimmy. When they say I'm too dramatic or too conservative, I think of all the Jimmys still waiting for someone to speak their name. Michael leaned forward. Well, tonight, you said it. Kennedy shook his head. Not loud. I just didn't let it stay buried. They sat in silence, the air conditioner the only sound. Michael grabbed the remote. Want to see the coverage? Kennedy declined. I know what it looks like. I just hope they see what mattered. He scribbled a note on the hotel notepad and tucked it into a folder by the bed. At dawn, he was up. The phone was still buzzing. He ignored it, pulled open the curtains, and stood barefoot, looking out at the city slowly waking. No cameras, no headlines, just New Orleans in the morning. Light. He splashed cold water on his face and stared in the mirror. He didn't look powerful, just tired, but in his eyes was clarity. Michael knocked, coffee in hand. They're calling it the most important political moment of the decade, he said, handing over the cup. And I think this is just the beginning. Kennedy raised an eyebrow. Who's they? Michael grinned and opened his tablet. Take your pick. Every outlet had the same image. Kennedy standing firm, files open, Schiff stumbling behind him. No caption necessary. I don't want the fall to be the story, Kennedy said, sipping the coffee. I want it to be about the people. It's both, Michael replied. But your story, it's spreading. He showed Kennedy a message from a senior producer at Face the Nation offering a full segment on Sunday. Below it, a direct message from someone named Linda. I'm Henry's son. You said my dad's name. I didn't think anyone would. Thank you. I cried last night. I think he'd be proud. Kennedy stared at it. After a long pause, he whispered, He should never have been forgotten. Soon after, the campaign's communications director called. Interviews, potential endorsements, even cautious inquiries from rivals who once ignored him. Kennedy left it to Michael. His mind was elsewhere. By mid-morning, he requested to deliver a short statement. No speech, no Q&A, just truth. In the hotel's quiet courtyard, dressed in a plain white shirt and slacks, he stood before a small, local news crew, no podium, no papers, just himself. Last night wasn't about winning. It wasn't about theatrics. It was about people, hard-working people who are told their struggles don't matter. I didn't plan that moment, but I'm not shocked it happened. The weight of truth finally shook something loose. He paused. We can't keep pretending silence is strength, or that looking away is leadership. If we want better, we have to call things by name, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Then he nodded and walked away. No applause, no performance. Back in the hotel room, a new message arrived from a man in Mississippi. His wife had worked in a shift-backed program that failed near Jackson. They lost everything. He'd never told the full story until now. Kennedy read the message 3 times, then replied, I'm listening, always listening. Michael looked up. You know, you could run for anything now. Kennedy gave a small smile. I just want people to stop being trampled and forgotten. Michael sat down. Maybe that's exactly why you should run. That evening, Kennedy finally had a moment alone. His team had gone to dinner. The TV was muted, looping coverage from the night before. Analysts and commentators on both sides dissected the footage like it was a game-winning shot. But Kennedy didn't watch. He sat at the desk sorting through printed emails and